Hey everybody, my name is Robert Grillo and I'm with Eric Unger and we're your hosts tonight for the Red Lettuce, bringing you progressive news from a vegan perspective, from an all species liberation perspective, and that includes the human ones. Hey Eric, how you doing tonight?
I'm good, Robert. How you doing?
Pretty good.
Yeah. Oh, so we got some interesting stories tonight. We got your story on the Chicago COVID-19 story with the this meat facility that lately about their employees getting sick with COVID-19 and why it needs to shut
Right.
down. And then we're also going to talk about these anti-lockdown protesters
Yeah,
all over the country,
God
and
bless.
yeah, right, and
Bring that
how
flag,
it's a big AstroTurf.
flag.
I know, cue the national anthem, right? It's like
Uh,
it's just a big AstroTurf
yeah,
campaign funded by right wing groups.
right. And they got that flag going and they're like, give me my freedom. And they're like so clueless about what freedom is because they're like so not free.
I know they have no idea. They just repeat right wing business
Yeah,
ideology.
it's so vapid. It's
Yeah.
so bad.
But yeah, why don't you start with your story, Robert?
Sure. So many have heard in the national news has been dominated by the stories of Smithfield and Tyson plants in several states now, uh, closing down or reporting like a ridiculous amount of COVID-19 cases among their workers. In one plant in South Dakota alone, Smithfield has now reported over 500 people testing positive in their plant. Like this is just a sign that this industry doesn't give a crap about its workers. It's obviously terrible to animals, and it's a dumpster fire when it comes to what their environmental impact is. But then the workers are treated like just disposable resources too. So now over the weekend, we find out that there's a meat packing plant in Chicago,
Mm-hmm.
Rose Packing Company,
And we should
which
also
is
point out is just of one of how many.
yeah, one of many because this city used to be dominated by meat packing.
I think there's like 14 of them, right? How many are there total?
In terms of live animal slaughterhouses, we only have 14 left. In terms of meat packing facilities like Rose, which takes carcasses that are delivered to them from farms and processes them into meat products that are sellable to wholesalers or whatever.
Right.
There's many of those. We don't know how many there are, but in any case, Rose did not handle this situation at all right. So most of their, consider the fact that these are jobs of last resort. Nobody wants to hack up corpses all day. Like the only reason why people take jobs of hacking up corpses and dealing with really dangerous machinery that could slash their throats or like cut their arm off, which by the way, dismemberment is actually a very common injury in this industry. The only reason why people take these jobs is because they are the jobs of last resort.
Yeah.
So what was really heartbreaking was the ABC7 actually interviewed a few of these people and said, and these people would not go on unless they were anonymous, and they were totally concealed, and they're like, this place is dangerous. It's a dangerous place to work to begin with, but under the current circumstances with COVID-19, we are basically side by side on the assembly line, and shit splashing, like blood and people sneezing and all this. It's just like all this fluid and body parts is just kind of like on an assembly line, and it's a terrible thing. And so they self-reported to the company. That's an important point, number one. The company didn't care. All of a sudden, though, these people reported being positive. They went on their own initiative to get tested and found that they were positive, and then reported it to their company. So the company says there's 21 cases reported so far, but they're not testing the other 500 There's 500 workers at this plant.
Yeah.
So far, they haven't tested anyone, as far as I know, but they're putting in body temperature sensors. It's like, okay, that's great, except for the fact that this virus is contagious. In a lot of they think that like 30% of the cases are transmitted when you do not have symptoms. So when you're asymptomatic. So putting a body temperature sensor, test all your employees. How difficult is that to put a swab in their mouth and test all of your 500 employees? How long would that take? A couple of hours, maybe?
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't get it.
It costs money. They don't want to, it's all about profits, so they don't want to waste any money.
In the meantime, the city hasn't done anything. Mayor Lightfoot hasn't had a word to say about it. We contacted her community affairs contact that we have and told them we were putting out a call to action today to have people call in and email her to tell her that she needs to shut this shit down, like she shut the shit down in Little Village when that company tried to demolish this enormous smokestack, which created a hazard, an air pollution hazard. She shut that shit down immediately and then blamed the company for doing the demolition. Well, the Little Village environmental grassroots group said, ain't that. That ain't how it went down. Because the city had to provide a permit for the company to do that demolition.
Yeah.
That would have never happened without the permit. So the city is responsible and Mayor Lightfoot is responsible, no matter how much she wants to point the finger. But my point is, she took action on that and said, oh, we're going to fine this company several $1,000s. We're shutting their demo down. Well, it just shows the power that she has. And if she wants to shut down these meatpacking plants and slaughterhouses to inspect them, which is what she should do, close them, inspect them, sanitize them, and then evaluate whether these places should even reopen. I mean, it's so fucking archaic that in the 21st century that we're hacking up animals in these fucking plants with undocumented workers that can't find a decent job elsewhere because the city won't take the responsibility for providing decent jobs for its citizens. I mean, this is wrong on many levels, and every progressive should see the connection. This exposes the connection between all these issues, workers and the conditions of workers, which is exactly what, by the way, over 100 years ago, Upton Sinclair, who wrote The Jungle, documented this for the first time in his book, The Jungle. And he showed the connection between the deplorable conditions for workers in this industry, for animals, and the environment. And we're still talking about it 100 years later, and still people are saying these are separate issues. Did you not read The Jungle? Go back 100 years and read The Jungle. It's all about how these issues are connected. They're not separate. So the industry, it's, in the city that regulates them, it's, this whole thing is a joke. So we're asking the mayor to come correct. If you're going to shut down that demo project that poisoned the air and put asbestos and all kinds of shit in the air for Little Village residents, then you need to shut these other places down because they're a fucking public health threat.
Right.
Duh.
Yeah, I don't know. See, it's just based off what we know, we know that this coronavirus is a disease that's transmitted by animals, and these slaughterhouses and meatpacking facilities are not essential because they are places where these diseases come from. And not only that, meat is not healthy for us to consume. We're not made to consume meat at all. So again, how are these essential jobs, and how are these essential businesses?
Right.
It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see how the mayor responds to this or doesn't respond, because she can drive around the neighborhoods and get PR about how she's telling people to go back home and not hang out in parks. And I know that's a cool
Meanwhile,
PR
she's
spot.
getting haircuts.
Right.
With no protective equipment on at all, because that's important.
No.
You know, that's essential.
Right. So, let her go around, get her hair cut, and go around and tell people to go back home, like from her limo.
Right.
I'm sure she's in her limo. And that's cool. But, like, you know what? You are completely missing, like, these hotbeds of, everybody knows that slaughterhouses are vectors of disease.
Mm-hmm.
In a time like this, the city can't properly regulate these places. The inspection reports are an absolute joke. We have reviewed them ourselves. They look like they were written by a 5-year-old. I've seen 5-year-olds with better command of English.
Yeah.
I don't know who they're hiring to do these inspections, but the system is so broken that our argument is like, look, you can't regulate them and you can't enforce your own laws. You shouldn't be licensing them. Just stop licensing them. And all we're talking about is 8 businesses right now that are open, that shouldn't be open. And if we could just get them closed, the problem would be solved in terms of like that sector. So let's see what happens. And
then your Slaughter Free Chicago, they have a campaign out addressing this issue, don't they?
Yeah, we are urging people to email the mayor at lettertothemayor@cityofchicago.org. That's the email, lettertothemayor@cityofchicago.org, and just express the fact that you think these places should be closed, that these COVID-19 clusters that are happening in meatpacking plants all over the country, including Chicago now, should be investigated. But the places need to be closed first so that a proper investigation can take place. And right. You know what? We'll find other stuff to eat.
There's plenty of other stuff to eat that doesn't doesn't feel pain and doesn't have to be slaughtered and doesn't kill you after you eat it.
Right.
It's called plants. So, that's what we're made to eat. Yeah.
Let's be the adults in this crisis, and let's be the adults in the room. Let's move on. Let's not cry like children over the fact that, oh my God, we might not. No, there's plenty of products that taste incredibly good that you can replace that with, and move on, grow up. Let's grow up as a society. This is just, we're in the 21st century. All right, now I want to hear about your story with the lockdowns.
The lockdown protesters
of the lockdowns.
Also, I just want to point out that the only reason why that the meat products that people consume taste good is because they're seasoned with plants. That's right. The only reason why people enjoy.
Yeah.
That. So.
Onion powder, garlic powder, salt.
Right.
Right. Herbs and all that.
Right. Yeah, it's important to point that out to people. They don't realize that they're putting plants on.
You taste meat. If you were to taste an animal product on its own, it would have no flavor at all. It would just have a disgusting texture.
Be grimy and gross. Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah. People just need to think about where their food comes from.
Yeah, definitely.
And if they, let's call their bluff on that, because we always hear that, oh, we need to know where our food comes from. Well, if you really know, you wouldn't want to consume the animal products, because it's just completely disgusting how
Right.
that,
People are making sacrifices right now to stay home to stop the spread of the virus and causing death among people. So let's extend that to animals after this.
absolutely.
Let's not intentionally kill animals anymore as a society, as a means of food, which we don't need to do.
Right.
It's barbaric what we're doing, and these animals, they enjoy life, they enjoy their friends and family. Everyone that we're missing right now, animals also enjoy, and they have a will to live, and they have the will and the need to be free, just like we do. So let's extend that to animals as well, not just um, humans. Let's also extend it to non-human beings.
Exactly. And I mean, the worst part of it for me is that these animals are, that when they go to slaughter, they're weeks or months old. So they're children, and their cognitive level is that of a child. Like,
Yeah, a 3 or 4 year old child. Yeah,
I mean, they're so fearful. They're so looking for their mother's protection, their parents' protection. And not only do they not have that, but they just have the only thing they know is cruel treatment and cruel handling. And it's like, how did I get into this fucking world? And why am I here? And why am I being treated like trash?
mm-hmm.
Nobody can explain that to me. That's their worldview. Like, that's their experience in life. If after weeks of having to endure whatever, or months, they're hauled off to a place where they're violently killed. And that's what that's the dystopian world that we've created for baby animals.
Mm-hmm.
We prey on the most vulnerable. These industries prey on the most vulnerable, and that in itself is incredibly disgusting. um, they have no cognitive ability, no more than a human child would, to understand what we're doing to them. And it makes it all the more disgusting.
Agreed.
So,
Agreed.
yeah. So anyway,
Yeah.
lots of footage about, I heard on NPR reporting on uh, the uh, the Patriots protesting the lockdowns, um, and their freedom being, oh no, tyranny, isn't that the big word, like
Yeah.
tyranny?
That social distancing is communism, and this is all tyranny because they,
Right.
can't go to work during a pandemic, which, is transmit this virus is transmitted from human to human too. So it's, kind of important that we don't, interact with others. It's
Yeah,
not.
kind of. And like, you've probably seen like the counter protests, which are like largely nurses and healthcare professionals saying, like, if you don't fucking stay home,
Right.
we're going to flood the system, and people are going to die as a result
Exactly.
of your asinine behavior.
So
So
yeah,
stay
so
the
make
fuck
everything
home.
worse. Yeah, it was really despicable behavior because some of these protesters were actually blocking medical professionals from getting to and from the hospital. It was
Wow.
really bad. But yeah, so in the media they don't really touch on this, but these anti-lockdown protesters, they are it's an AstroTurf campaign funded by right-wing groups connected to the Trump administration.
Right.
The protests that took place in Texas, Indiana, Michigan, New Hampshire, Nevada, Utah, Wisconsin, Colorado. There's so many other states that these demonstrations took place, and the media really ate it up.
Right.
And all these protests were being encouraged by Trump in a series of tweets that he sent out on Friday. Uh,
Liberty.
yeah, he issued an online call to liberate, like states of Minnesota, Michigan, and Virginia. It's really, really crazy, psychopathic. A majority, meanwhile, a majority of Americans support lockdowns.
Right.
There's research done by the Pew Research Center, and they
Huge.
did a poll, and it found that 66% of the population is concerned that the state government and federal government isn't doing enough, and
Could
uh, that
could open
they wouldn't want this removed too quickly.
right.
Um,
Right. I heard that too.
yeah, and the two groups behind the Operation Gridlock, which was the rally that took place in Michigan on Wednesday, they have ties to the Republican Party and the Trump administration. The other hosts of the other host, the Michigan Conservative Coalition, was founded by Matt Murdock. He's now a Republican member of the state House of Representatives. So this group, the Michigan Conservative Coalition, also operates under the name Michigan Trump Republicans. And in January, they held an event featuring several members of the Trump campaign. But wait, there was another one that was, there was also another group, the Michigan Freedom Fund, and it was a co-host of the rally. And this group received more than $500,000 from the Betsy Ross family.
Right.
And they're regular donors to right-wing groups like this. So this is where all this, all the funding is coming from, right-wing groups.
Yeah.
And it's just really crazy to see that this is what the media focus on, but there's a reason we're not seeing other protests that are actually going on right now. That there are people on the left are organizing caravan protests. So while those are going on, those groups, these leftist groups that are organizing caravan protests, which draw attention to addressing things like freeing incarcerated people from jails, prisons, and ICE detention camps, rent and mortgage freezes, housing the homeless, you name it. The media focuses on the media is focusing on this right-wing AstroTurf group, all these right-wing AstroTurf anti-lockdown protests. We all know why the corporate media isn't focusing on the left-wing side of the protests, is because we all know the corporate media will go out of its way to avoid stoking critical class consciousness amongst the working class, because these media outlets exist to manufacture consent for the ruling class ideology of neoliberalism. So covering these stories that are going on the left goes against their profit model and mission.
Right.
So
right. They these movements and issues would prompt people to question, whether there's too much corporate power, basically. Right. The media is corporate owned too, so they obviously don't want people to think too much about that. One of the issues that I've seen a little bit in the news, in the mainstream media, is small business owners questioning, why did these big businesses get all this relief and we haven't gotten squat?
Right. And all these other things that we mentioned that, the people, the organizers on the left that are advocating for, all these things are happening in other countries, especially the socialist nations like Venezuela, Cuba, China. all those DPRK, all those places have these things already, and also in the other capitalist countries like Denmark and places like that, they have these uh,
Nobody worries about
policies in place.
nobody in Europe.
But the media doesn't want to even like bring that up. The corporate media doesn't want to bring this up or report on that because they don't want critical class consciousness, soaking up amongst the working class, and because that would cause people to unite on this.
Yeah, they just want to cast it up as like, oh, that's just like extremism a la Venezuela or Cuba or like, Russia or something. And yet the reality is that the reason why Europeans are faring a lot better through this whole crisis is because, they're off of work and they have paid leave. It's a given.
Right. It's a given.
It's a given in any European country, Western, Eastern, more socialist, even the least socialist. It's just a given. We're the only Western industrialized country that, for us to get paid leave, it would be just like, oh my God, that's communism.
I know.
We have to fight against. It's like,
or just having health care for everybody. We're the only industrialized nation that doesn't have that.
Right.
And we're the richest one. And it would cost less money.
And they think they have people afraid that they're going to lose their freedom. So that's the operative word. And these freedom fighters that are like protesting the shutdowns and all that, I really think that the right has been able to brainwash that segment of the public to thinking that they really are free, or there is some kind of freedom that they should fight for, when in reality the basic rights that they could enjoy, they will never experience because they don't understand how their tax dollars could provide for those services if it was properly managed by the state. They just think that, oh no, let's put our faith in private industry. Like as if, like, okay, if you don't trust the state, that's fine. But then you're saying, okay, so my tax dollars are gonna go to all these corporations that have no accountability to my interests whatsoever.
Right.
I'm going to trust those, the Microsofts, the Amazons, more than I would trust like an elected official that I at least is accountable because he's an elected official. I mean, it's amazingly stupid.
I know. Well, they've been, a lot of people in the U.S. Have been conditioned to defending the freedoms of our oppressors and the ruling class, and to advocate for their class interest, not the working class interest, even though they're in the working class. So this is how a lot of people have been conditioned, advocating for the ruling ideology, which has been instilled within them. It's been conditioned in their mind. This is what you advocate for, and this is the only way. This is the you got to advocate for the system that really oppresses you and then benefits the ruling class.
Right.
I guess we can wrap up here for tonight.
Yeah. So we got a lot in store next week. I mean, got a lot going on. We got Mitch coming back.
Yeah, right? Mitch. Yeah, we were sad that he couldn't be with us tonight. We had some other things to attend, which we totally understand. We have a lot going on as well, but we have we have some exciting content coming up. So in the next coming weeks. So we are looking forward to seeing everybody again next week. Thank you everyone for joining the Red Lettuce, and please subscribe and share.
Have a great night.
Have a great night. Bye.
Bye.